Letter 20. That freedom is an active and not a passive principle results from its very conception, but that liberty itself should be an effect of nature, taking this word in its widest sense, and not the work of man, and therefore that it can be favored or thwarted by natural means is a necessary consequence of that which precedes. It begins only when man is complete, and when these two fundamental impulsions have been developed. It will then be wanting whilst he is incomplete, and while one of these impulsions is excluded, and it will be re-established by all that gives back to man his integrity. Thus it is possible, both with regard to the entire species as to the individual, to remark the moment when man is yet incomplete, and when one of the two exclusions acts solely in him. We know that man commences by life simply, to end by form, that he is more of an individual than a person, and that he starts from the limited or finite to approach the infinite. The sensuous impulsion comes into play, therefore, before the rational impulsion, because sensation precedes consciousness, and in this priority of sensuous impulsion, we find the key of the history of the whole of human liberty. There is a moment, in fact, when the instinct of life, not yet opposed to the instinct of form, acts as nature and as necessity, when the sensuous is a power because man has not begun. For even in man there can be no other power than his will. But when man shall have attained to the power of thought, reason, on the contrary, will be a power, and moral or logical necessity will take the place of physical necessity. Sensuous power must then be annihilated before the law which must govern it can be established. It is not enough that something shall begin which as yet was not. Previously, something must end which had begun. Man cannot pass immediately from sensuousness to thought. He must step backwards, for it is only when one determination is suppressed that the contrary determination can take place. Consequently, in order to exchange passive against active liberty, a passive determination against an active, he must be momentarily free from all determination, and must traverse a state of pure determinability. He has then to return in some degree to that state of pure negative indetermination in which he was before his senses were affected by anything. But this state was absolutely empty of all contents. And now the question is to reconcile an equal determination and a determinability equally without limit with the greatest possible fullness, because from this situation something positive must immediately follow. The determination which man received by sensation must be preserved, because he should not lose the reality, but at the same time, in so far as finite, it should be suppressed, because a determinability without limit would take place. The problem consists then in annihilating the determination of the mode of existence, and yet at the same time in preserving it, which is only possible in one way, in opposing to it another. The two sides of a balance are in equilibrium when empty. They are also in equilibrium when their contents are of equal weight. Thus, to pass from sensation to thought the soul traverses a medium position in which sensibility and reason are at the same time active, and thus they mutually destroy their determinate power, and by their antagonism produce a negation. This medium situation, in which the soul is neither physically nor morally constrained, and yet is in both ways active, merits essentially the name of a free situation. And if we call the state of sensuous determination physical, and the state of rational determination logical or moral, that state of real and active determination should be called the aesthetic. Letter 21. I have remarked in the beginning of the foregoing letter that there is a twofold condition of determinableness and a twofold condition of determination, and now I can clear up this proposition. The mind can be determined, is determinable, only in as far as it is not determined. It is, however, determinable also in as far as it is not exclusively determined, that is, if it is not confined in its determination. The former is only a want of determination. It is without limits, because it is without reality. But the latter, the aesthetic determinableness, has no limits, because it unites all reality. The mind is determined inasmuch as it is only limited, but it is also determined because it limits itself of its own absolute capacity. It is situated in the former position when it feels, and the second when it thinks. Accordingly, the aesthetic constitution is in relation to determinableness what thought is in relation to determination. The latter is a negative from internal and infinite completeness, the former a limitation from internal infinite power. Feeling and thought come into contact in one single point. The mind is determined in both conditions. The man becomes something and exists, either as individual or person, by exclusion. In other cases, these two faculties stand infinitely apart. Just in the same manner, the aesthetic determinableness comes in contact with the mere want of determination in a single point, by both excluding every distinct, determined existence, by thus being in all other points nothing and all, and hence by being infinitely different. Therefore, if the latter, in the absence of determination from deficiency, is represented as an empty infiniteness, the aesthetic freedom of determination, which forms the proper counterpart to the former, can be considered as a completed infiniteness, a representation which exactly agrees with the teachings of the previous investigations. Man is therefore nothing in the aesthetic state, if attention is given to the single result and not to the whole faculty, and if we regard only the absence or want of every special determination. We must therefore do justice to those who pronounce the beautiful, and the disposition in which it places the mind, as entirely indifferent and unprofitable in relation to knowledge and feeling. They are perfectly right, for it is certain that beauty gives no separate, single result, either for the understanding or for the will. It does not carry out a single intellectual or moral object. It discovers no truth, does not help us to fulfill a single duty, and, in one word, is equally unfit to found the character or to clear the head. Accordingly, the personal worth of a man or his dignity, as far as this can only depend on himself, remains entirely undetermined by aesthetic culture, and nothing further is attained than that on the part of nature. It is made profitable to make of himself what he will, that the freedom to be what he ought to be is restored perfectly to him. But by this, something infinite is attained. But as soon as we remember that freedom is taken from man by the one-sided compulsion of nature and feeling, and by the exclusive legislation of the reason and thinking, we must consider the capacity restored to him by the aesthetical disposition as the highest of all gifts, as the gift of humanity. I admit that he possesses this capacity for humanity before every definite determination in which he may be placed. But, as a matter of fact, he loses it with every determined condition into which he may come. And if he is to pass over to an opposite condition, humanity must be, in every case, restored to him by the aesthetic life. It is therefore not only a poetical license, but also philosophically correct, when beauty is named our second creator. Nor is this inconsistent with the fact that she only makes it possible for us to attain and realize humanity, leaving this to our free will. For in this she acts in common with our original creator, nature, which has imparted to us nothing further than this capacity for humanity, but leaves the use of it to our own determination of will. Letter 22. Accordingly, if the aesthetic disposition of the mind must be looked upon in one respect as nothing, that is, when we confine our view to separate and determined operations, it must be looked upon in another respect as a state of the highest reality. And as far as we attend to the substance of all limits, and the sum of powers which are commonly active in it. Accordingly, we cannot pronounce them, again, to be wrong, who describe the aesthetic state to be the most productive in relation to knowledge and morality. They are perfectly right, for a state of mind which comprises the whole of humanity in itself must of necessity include in itself also, necessarily and potentially, every separate expression of it. Again, a disposition of mind that removes all limitations from the totality of human nature must also remove it from every special expression of the same, exactly because its aesthetic disposition does not exclusively shelter any separate function of humanity. It is favorable to all without distinction, nor does it favor any particular functions, precisely because it is the foundation of the possibility of all. All other exercises give to the mind some special aptitude, but for that very reason give it some definite limits. Only the aesthetical leads him to the unlimited. Every other condition in which we can live refers us to a previous condition, and requires for its solution a following condition. Only the aesthetic is a complete whole in itself, for it unites in itself all conditions of its source and of its duration. Here alone we feel ourselves swept out of time, and our humanity expresses itself with purity and integrity as if it had not yet received any impression or interruption from the operation of external powers. That which flatters our senses in immediate sensation, opens our weak and volatile spirit to every impression, but makes us in the same degree less apt for exertion. That which stretches our thinking power and invites to abstract conceptions strengthens our mind for every kind of resistance, but hardens it also in the same proportion, and deprives us of susceptibility in the same ratio that helps us to greater mental activity. For this very reason, one as well as the other brings us at length to exhaustion, because matter cannot long do without the shaping, constructive force, and the force cannot do without the constructible material. But on the other hand, if we have resigned ourselves to the enjoyment of genuine beauty, we are at such a moment of our passive and active powers in the same degree master, and we shall turn with ease from grave to gay, from rest to movement, from submission to resistance, to abstract thinking and intuition. This high indifference and freedom of mind, united with power and elasticity, is the disposition in which a true work of art ought to dismiss us. And there is no better test of true aesthetic excellence. If after an enjoyment of this kind we find ourselves specially impelled to a particular mode of feeling or action, and unfit for other modes, this serves as an infallible proof that we have not experienced any pure aesthetic effect, whether this is owing to the object, to our own mode of feeling, as generally happens, or to both together. As in reality, no purely aesthetical effect can be met with, for man can never leave his dependence on material forces. The excellence of a work of art can only consist in its greater approximation to its ideal of aesthetic purity, and however high we may raise the freedom of this effect, we shall always leave it with a particular disposition and a particular bias. Any class of productions or separate work in the world of art is noble and excellent in proportion to the universality of the disposition and the limited character of the bias thereby presented to our mind. This truth can be applied to works in various branches of art, and also to different works in the same branch. We leave a grand musical performance with our feelings excited, the reading of a noble poem with a quickened imagination, a beautiful statue or building with an awakened understanding. But a man would not choose an opportune moment who attempted to invite us to abstract thinking after a high musical enjoyment, or to attend a prosaic affair of common life after a high poetical enjoyment, or to kindle our imagination and astonish our feelings directly after inspecting a fine statue or edifice. The reason of this is that music, by its matter, even when most spiritual, presents a greater affinity with the senses than is permitted by aesthetic liberty. It is because even the most happy poetry, having for its medium the arbitrary and contingent play of the imagination, always shares in it more than the intimate necessity of the really beautiful allows. It is because the best sculpture touches on severe science by what is determinate in its conception. However, these particular affinities are lost in proportion as the works of these three kinds of art rise to a greater elevation, and it is a natural and necessary consequence of their perfection that, without confounding their objective limits, the different arts come to resemble each other more and more in the action which they exercise on the mind. At its highest degree of ennobling, music ought to become a form, and act on us with the calm power of an antique statue. In its most elevated perfection, the plastic art ought to become music, and move us by the immediate action exercise on the mind by the senses. In its most complete development, poetry ought both to stir as powerfully, like music, and like plastic art, to surround us with a peaceful light. In each art, the perfect style consists exactly in knowing how to remove specific limits, while sacrificing at the same time the particular advantages of the art, and to give it, by a wise use of what belongs to it especially, a more general character. Nor is it only the limits inherent in the specific character of each kind of art that the artist ought to overstep in putting his hand to the work. He must also triumph over those which are inherent in the particular subject of which he treats. In a really beautiful work of art, the substance ought to be inoperative. The form should do everything, for by the form the whole man is acted on. The substance acts on nothing but isolated forces. Thus, however vast and sublime it may be, the substance always exercises a restrictive action on the mind, and true aesthetic liberty can only be expected from the form. Consequently, the true search of the matter consists in destroying matter by the form, and the triumph of art is great in proportion as it overcomes matter and maintains its sway over those who enjoy its work. It is great particularly in destroying matter when most imposing, ambitious, and attractive, when therefore matter has most power to produce the effect proper to it, or again, when it leads those who consider it more closely to enter directly into relation with it. The mind of the spectator and of the hearer must remain perfectly free and intact. It must issue pure and entire from the magic circle of the artist, as from the hands of the creator. The most frivolous subject ought to be treated in such a way that we preserve the faculty to exchange it immediately for the most serious work. The arts which have passion for their object, as a tragedy for example, do not present a difficulty here. For, in the first place, these arts are not entirely free, because they are in the service of a particular end, the pathetic. And then no connoisseur will deny that even in this class a work is perfect in proportion as, amidst the most violent storms of passion, it respects the liberty of the soul. There is a fine art of passion, but an impassioned fine art is a contradiction in terms, for the infallible effect of the beautiful is emancipation from the passions. The idea of an intrusive fine art, didactic art, or improving moral art is no less contradictory, for nothing agrees less with the idea of the beautiful than to give a determinate tendency to the mind. However, from the fact that a work produces effects only by its substance, it must not always be inferred that there is a want of form in this work. This conclusion may quite as well testify to a want of form in the observer, if his mind is too stretched or too relaxed, if it is only accustomed to receive things either by the senses or the intelligence. Even in the most perfect combination, it will only stop to look at the parts, and it will only see matter in the most beautiful form, only sensible of the coarse art and the harmony of the whole. The interest he takes in the work is either solely moral or exclusively physical. The only thing wanting to it is to be exactly what it ought to be, aesthetical. The readers of this class enjoy a serious and pathetic poem as they do a sermon, a simple and playful work as an inebriating draught. And if on the one hand they have so little taste as to demand edification from a tragedy or from an epos, even such as the Messias, on the other hand, they will be infallibly scandalized by a piece after the fashion of Anacreon, and Catullus.